Hey guys, welcome back. It's that time of year again. No, not Christmas. It is the season of seeing Shen Yun advertisements everywhere. And like most weird / good stories start, I was at brunch with my friend and we were walking around town and there was like an ad for Shen Yun in a boba shop, just like this huge poster. And then I was like, man, I've always kind of wanted to go. Like, it looks really pretty. I've seen all the commercials and stuff, but it's just so expensive. It was like $250 a ticket for the city that I'm in. And I was just like, well, that's like as much as seeing like Hamilton or something. Like, I'll just go see like one of those. But maybe I'll go see Shen Yun someday. And my friend was like, oh yeah, like I went, it's really good. And I was like, oh, like, how is it? And she was all like, oh, well, I mean, the traditional dancing was fantastic. But then there was like this political part, which she knew was coming, but she didn't know how crazy it was. There was like this car crash and then like they throw a baby off stage. And then like there's this red tornado thing happening on a screen behind it with like the Karl Marx and stuff, his head like swirling around. And she's just like, it was wild. It was wild. And I was like, are you kidding? Are you joking? It's like, no, I'm serious. Like, this really happened. And so that is what today's adventure is. Once I heard that craziness, I was just like, well, I need to understand this. I need to understand why. So today we'll be talking about Falun Gong and its connection to the dance troupe Shen Yun. On Reese Gray Analyzes, we look at creations and experiences in art, media, music, and even video games to explore exactly why we think the way we think, question what we believe, and learn something new. And today, and so you're probably thinking, well, like, what's Falun Gong? Because I kind of didn't know what it was to begin with. Well, Falun Gong nowadays is what people refer to as a cult, basically. They call it a cult. And Falun Gong was actually banned in China. And the leader of the Falun Gong movement moved to the USA and settled in New York in like the 90s. And in order to spread the story of Falun Gong, art is a great medium to educate people. So it combined like traditional dance and Falun Gong and anti-Chinese sentiment. And the Chinese embassy even puts out a warning to not listen to Falun Dafa or Falun Gong because it is a cult, and to like avoid being deceived by the Falun Gong organization. So let's research this and kind of figure out, like, is this a cult? Or is it something that was unfairly banned from China? So we're going to go through that today. So the establishment of Falun Gong was in 1991. Actually, it's a really new movement. So, and forgive my pronunciation. I know, roast me in the comments. So this was made by Hongxi. So it's like a spiritual practice, like combining Qigong and exercise. Qigong is really similar to like yoga or Tai Chi. So it's just kind of like movement and meditations and awareness and oneness and all of that. So not really a religion of sorts, but kind of like a way to center yourself, like yoga and Tai Chi. And its moral philosophy was based off of like the 4 tenets, which I'm going to say horribly: Zhen, Shan, and Ren. Run. Oh my God. That's my friend's last name and she laughs every time I say it. Run. Oh my God. So it's truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance that are the 3 pillars of Qigong. So Falun Gong originally, it takes off. People love it. Yum, 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 yum. Falun Gong, so awesome. And the Chinese government actually endorses it too. They're like, oh yeah, this is good. This is good stuff. Like, you're getting people active, you know, we stand behind you, Falun Gong. We like it. So at first, the Falun Gong Hongxi leader and the Chinese government were pretty cool. This did not last long. The practice just like skyrocketed to fame, basically. And there was tens of millions of people practicing Falun Gong. And these were all types of people, like people in the Communist Party, in politics, people in the military, regular, everyday people, kids, old people, and parents and everyone was just really into it. But remember those like pillars that we talked about? They kind of started to conflict with the CCP's ideology of like communism that they were trying to uphold within China at the time. So Falun Gong had a focus on like spirituality and morality, but the CCP was atheistic and more Marxist in its ideology. And so they saw Falun Gong as a competitor. And because it was getting so popular, the Chinese government was like, all right, that's enough. That's enough of it now. And now you guys cannot do Falun Gong anymore. It was becoming too much of a pretty much like a movement and ideology within the country. So the CCP viewed itself as the ultimate moral and ideological authority in China. And then with Falun Gong, they were fearing that they were starting to lose that authority in the country. And so seeing them as a potential competitor, they're like, no more. So really fast, like 5 years later, China takes it back. They're like, no, we're done now. No longer friends. Because in 1996, the people who practice Falun Gong, their membership surpassed that of the Communist Party in some regions, with at that point in 1996 being between 70 to 100 million people. And then at this time, Li Hongxi was all like, he was thriving. He wanted to publish a book on this, really get the ball moving. People loved it. And China was like, no, you can't publish the book. You're not allowed to do that. So they nixed that. And in the book, there is apparently some like authentic knowledge of like Taoism and stuff in there, but there's also like crazy stuff in there too, like harnessing your inner power in order to do like a magic of some sorts, or like to like harness that energy within yourself in order to have powers, right? Which that's not healthy. That's not it. And if you like dig into people's experiences with Falun Gong, people do say this, like they lost a lot of like time and had an obsession with like getting these skills. There was this one story I read where someone trusted that themselves was a healer and like quit their job and everything and went into like massage therapy and was like so obsessed with it, so obsessed with the fact that they were like a master energy worker, right? And then they kind of fell into that rabbit hole for a couple of years. So like with anything that is like a spirituality or like a religious type of thing, you just have to have a type of awareness that you're not being taken advantage of by people or like delusional or something. I know that's a huge discussion for another day, but anyway, this Falun Gong stuff. So he skedaddles from China. He's all like, well, if I can't do it here, I'm gonna move to the US and do it over there. And so that's what he did, moved to New York. And in 1999, the CCP officially labels it as an organization for heretics. So they were done for. And it was said that practitioners of Falun Gong in China, there was like organ harvesting, there was like persecution and arrests, of course, and forced labor. These are continuous allegations of the CCP for various groups of groups in the CCP. So in July of that year of 1999, the CCP started this huge campaign against Falun Gong, which apparently led to the most strict crackdowns like in history, with reportedly millions being detained. People were sent to labor camps. And then, of course, people may have been killed for the organ harvesting. And then that year as well, there's a lot of propaganda going on, even on television stations and stuff, that Falun Gong was superstitious and it was anti-science. And this sparked a lot of protests within China because they felt like this was a misrepresentation of what Falun Gong actually was. So in comes like mass demonstrations. So people coming together and standing peacefully in solidarity against the propaganda that's being spread by the CCP. And what was the straw that broke the camel's back was that there was an academic article published about the dangers of Falun Gong. So there was a mass demonstration in Tianjin in 1999. The article criticized Falun Gong for spiritual manipulation. And so thousands of protesters stood in solidarity at the University of Tianjin. And they were like demanding a retraction of that article. And at that protest, the police detained people. And then this just snowballed into more and more protests for weeks and weeks. And then just a month later, we have the Zhongenhai protest, where there was more than 10,000 protesters this time because the movement grew and grew and people were seeing how serious this was. And this one, they were not only begging for the freedom to practice Falun Gong, but they were begging for the release of the people who were imprisoned. And the sheer size of this just shocked the CCP. They were just like, oh my God, like how do we even handle this? And this is kind of why like the Falun Gong leader was trying to get international recognition for these human rights abuses. So far you hear this and you're like, oh no, this sounds like, you know, these people were wronged so far. But you get into what's happening now with Shen Yun and it gets concerning, and this is why. So in 2001, when Falun Gong was already banned, we had the biggest incident, which was Tiananmen Square, where the CCP aired footage of people practicing Falun Gong and then people setting themselves on fire, which people say was propaganda to make people who followed Falun Gong look crazy. And so there's this narrative of the CCP trying to make Falun Gong people look like more of extremists than they are, and then people who follow Falun Gong who are just like, well, it's just a meditation type of practice. So there's two different camps of things happening here. And so we move on over to the US. And the creation of Shen Yun performing arts happens around 2005 and 2006, so 5-ish years after Li Hongxi comes to the United States. So this performing arts Shen Yun show was created in New York, and they integrate dance and music, like traditional Chinese dance and storytelling. Just kind of like a basic showing of like the morals that they stand for and objection to tyranny. So that's the huge themes in Shen Yun show. So this performing arts Shen Yun thing, it is a huge multi-million-dollar just huge industry, right? And they're listed as a nonprofit, and you wonder like why there's so many ads everywhere. And that's because when you're a nonprofit, your advertising fees, you can negotiate with the advertisers and get really, really good rates. And this Shen Yun guy is known for being super cheap and like refusing to pay large sums of money. So basically there's a lot of people who just go around and hustling, touting this story of like the background of Falun Gong and getting really, really cheap and easy advertising to sell their exorbitantly high price tickets, which they say is to fund, you know, these people who are performing for Shen Yun. But I'll leave some stuff in the description, but some of these dancers don't even get paid like a wage. So this is how your employment as a Shen Yun dancer typically goes. So this is where we drop into the culty bits here. So there's a compound called Dragon Springs Compound, and Li Hongxi lives there as well. And these dancers work year round and tour. And many of these dancers are recruited through a specific performing arts center, which is the Fei Tian Academy of Arts. So this is like a Falun Gong affiliated school where practitioners, like parents, send their kids, and you know, Shen Yun, that's your goal, that's where you go. And dancers can receive like scholarships in order to go here. And then you're like, well, why would they want to go here so bad? There's the familial pressure. And then also they pay for your lodging and your food because you all live in the same compound together. And then if they do get paid, I saw that their salary ranges from like $24,000 to $40,000, which is like below the poverty line in the United States. And they're working and training all year. Like they're specialized individuals here with special skills, and they are not getting paid an adequate amount for them. So all in all, it's like super exploitative business practices all around, had it be that this is true. Now, that's you know, what I see. And I know the propaganda game is strong. And even when academic articles are manipulated to have false information, it's so difficult to get a grasp on what's reality. And so I like to go from like the experiences that people say of being in Shen Yun and being in Falun Gong in New York, which I will leave in the description, really good documentaries about it. And I think, of course, like people's stories are where we can find the most merit when we're not sure, like when other things are being manipulated. So, and then for people who do go to the shows as well, sometimes people feel like they're tricked into like this propaganda show because like the titles for the show are like 5,000 years of Chinese history. Some are like more innocuous than others. Like others are like the story China doesn't want you to know and stuff like that. And so it's all basically different from city to city that you go to. But no doubt people love the show. They think it's a beautiful show, but it's just at the same time very odd. And it doesn't tout like human rights and freedom of speech necessarily, but how Falun Gong is the right way of life. And, you know, people who do not follow it will descend into hell. Like these are what people pick up on when they are finished watching the show and they're like, so it's just its own type of propaganda, huh? So it's all this huge propaganda game. And all of this sprouted because I was just so caught off guard when my friend actually saw this show and she told me, she's like, hand to God, that happened. And so I'm just shocked. And that's Falun Gong and Shen Yun as I know it. And now we all know a little bit more. I hope you guys enjoyed today. If you guys have any other weird stuff you'd like me to like dive into, I would love to hear any suggestions. And as always, love you guys. Bye.